Welcome back, everybody. The second half, Siege of Middenheim, episode 9. Glad you all could be here. And let's just jump right into it. Let's see what everybody's, make sure everybody's back real quick. Hello, everyone. Including Will?
Hello.
Yay!
Oh, Will. Did you hear me at all?
Will.
Will's back?
Will.
Yay! Will is back.
Farron,
Is he?
did you fall asleep on the job again?
Maybe.
So, question, though. I have to ask. When you awoke, was your face on the keyboard and was it pressing any keys?
Where your mouse?
Or your mouse?
Maybe. Possibly. I don't know.
Oh, man. Well.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. Glad you could be here. Hey, you're helping Kree, who got poisoned for 3 hours because Hannibal cast a spell.
Amazing.
Really doesn't require any explanation more than that. That's just, sometimes people standing near Hannibal are afflicted with horrifying afflictions.
Yeah, no, that seems perfectly legitimate.
Yep.
Also, I told you not to touch him. But,
Yeah, we were both very careful about that. Kree basically started complaining about his stomach and needing to purge the system in one direction or the other.
Or both.
We were like, tell us if anything happens. Anything unexpected, not the stuff that he obviously intends to happen.
So.
You're going to tell us, right? Like, write it down. Document it. Take pictures.
What? Gross.
You're gross. What are you talking about?
Says you.
So.
Says Mr. Sleep with me platonically.
I like how
Seats out tonight.
I like how still in that scenario Will is the butt of the joke. I like it. I
mean,
I like the
really
level
it
of
should be
savageness.
Morello who's considered being like the target of that joke. It's really only because Farron gets everything piled on him.
Yeah,
It feels like
no.
that's still something about him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's good. I like it. I like that. I like that level of craziness.
The core here is the total lack of respect for Farron.
Yes, indeed. I mean,
We
that's
really
just what
can't blame
everybody
that on
does.
anything else.
You basically just told him, I need your gene seed.
No? Question mark?
You told that. You told
You
Farron.
did have Marilla ask him to help her have a
I mean, I did, but...
And then
No,
you
you
told
didn't
him
know.
to-
That's the end of the
What's
sentence.
about
That's the
it?
end of the sentence, yeah.
Yeah, you really can't qualify that in any way that improves it.
He refused, so it's...
What do you mean?
That's in spite of you. That's not like, it's okay. I tried to kill the person, but I failed.
I mean...
That's still a crime.
Or should be.
Attempted murder?
I know attempted murder is. I mean what Morella does to Farron, like, all the time. Should
It's
still
just
be.
psychological trauma. That's...
You just don't stop with it either. You go, all right, sleep with me platonically so I may have a child. And then he's like, no, he's like, all right, well, then just sleep with me, but don't actually have sex with me.
So anyway,
Mhm.
Welcome back, Farron.
Farron, you escort Kree outside, who immediately begins like retching in the bushes. And he looks to be in some amount of pain, Farron. As he's kind of like moaning and groaning and
Moaning and groaning, moaning and groaning.
Is there a way to gently rub someone's back with a barge pole?
Don't touch him. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole.
I mean, I don't know. If that's what you want to say you are doing, though, I will accept that.
Then I'm 100% doing that.
Okay,
You
good.
like grabbed a broom and started using it to rub his back.
Yeah, it's that Liz Lemon clip.
I'm so glad that somebody else understood that. Somebody else watched 30 Rock.
Dude, 30 Rock is one of the greatest shows ever.
Yeah, I've watched it like 7 times. Sorry.
Here it is. But it's muted, so I didn't like. Here's what's going on right now. If everybody is interested. There you go. There it is, right there. That's what
Yep.
the current scenario. Great, fantastic. Everybody should know what that is. Here, I'll just do it right here. There you go. Everybody should know what that is. So, as you are consoling him, Farron, there are probably quite a few, because you're outside the temple now. There are probably quite a few like guardsmen, knights, bear riders, perhaps, that like take note of you, and they come up to you and they say, probably one of the bear rider lieutenants that you may like recognize briefly, comes up to you and says, General Farron, it is good to see you. Perhaps we can have a quick conversation on what we are to do next. I'm afraid that we have not gotten many orders from the top. And kind of like looks at Kree like, oh, I'm sorry, is this a bad time?
No, go ahead. Oh.
And yes, the operation at the temple was successful. We are currently in the process of regrouping. Orders shall be carried out as soon as they are given. For the meantime, just regroup and await orders.
Very well, General. I will pass the message along. It is good to see that you and Bernadette are well.
Yes, and so am I. So, probably just pat Bernadette's ear.
Yeah. And the soldier gives you a Kislevite salute and continues on with your instructions in tow. So that's great. That's good. The bear riders will definitely begin executing that plan. I think that another thing that occurs while you're there is you see, now that the battle has kind of died down and there's no more, you see that one of the followers of Ash River approaches you. And recognizing you as like that person that helped at the hospital that one time, comes up and it says, it's probably a young girl, perhaps in maybe her late teens. She says, excuse me, Mr. Farron, sir. What? Have you seen the Most Holy? Is she with you?
She was with me a little while ago. They're just doing some. I'm really trying to explain in a way that wouldn't. Yeah, she's doing fine. The Most Holy will come to her people fairly soon when she's ready.
Okay. Good. We will continue to do work in her name then, assisting those who are injured and wounded. Thank you, Mr. Farron, sir.
Yes. Blessings to the Most Holy.
Oh my god, stop it.
And
He's
And
gotta
they-
have fun.
and may her light shine upon your brow for all the days to come.
Yes, that.
Does it just keep on going? Like,
No,
like,
I
and
think
may the heavens open up and she rise above them all.
yeah. No, I think that at that point she gives you a quick a little curtsy and scurries off to pass the good word that the Most Holy is not dead or anything like that. So I think that moving on to perhaps it is time to see the Most Holy and what she is doing. As you're progressing through the battlefield, doing your normal, like, you know, mass healing / you know, picking up the wounded and the dead. what is there anything different to your process now that you have had now that you've had a bit of a traumatic experience?
I think that unfortunately, Aelin is probably extremely distracted and what I could only characterize as doing a poor job.
Sure.
So I think that she goes to start helping one person and then automatically gets distracted and starts helping someone else, and then feels so drained and emotional and is trying to, just that constant inability to follow through on any task that she is starting currently. And so I think anybody who knows her would realize that like something is very wrong. Because nobody in her path that she has walked, not a single person has been helped.
Right, yeah, like it's just mostly like you're giving like your verbal blessing, right? But none of it is actually really assisting in the matter. Like people probably see you and they recognize you at this point as being kind of the battlefield medic, right? Because you're very distinctive looking, obviously, you're an angel. So as they see you kind of moving through the wounded, I think that like as you're blessing them, they're like, okay, this one, she looked at this one, we need to take this is the one that needs help, right? And so like begin to like almost carry out your orders as you're giving them, but you're not really doing anything to assist the situation in any meaningful way. So I think that kind of sums up your interaction. And I think that unfortunately for you, perhaps eventually someone from your order does indeed find you, and you see this it's actually probably one of Daniela's like paladins in training, right? Who is probably part of the battle but not quite like fully in the midst of what was going on. He comes running up and you can see his arm is like in a makeshift sling, and he's got a head bandage, and his helmet is removed. And he comes like kind of trotting up to you and he says, most divine.
Yes, what is it?
You must come quickly. There's something going on at the hospital. I don't, you must come with me.
Yes, of course. And she kind of like straightens her robes and follows.
Yeah, and I think as he begins to kind of hustle down the street, like he keeps like looking back to make sure that you're following him, right? Which obviously you are. And as you arrive, kind of at the front portion of where all of the healing priests and priestesses and the medics and probably some of your hospital workers kind of are setting up the triage center as you do. I think that you see there appears to be like a small crowd gathered around kind of the central area of this. And as you kind of approach, you see that there is a priest of Mor who is standing there. And he appears to be arguing with one of your disciples. And you can tell that this is one of your disciples that actually has like some rank in the order that they've created. She's probably standing there with her arms crossed, kind of staring down at him. And I think that as you walk into the conversation, the priest of Mor says, "This man is clearly dead. That means he is our responsibility, no longer yours." And he kind of like, he doesn't call her priestess, but I think he's like kind of looks at her and he says, "They are no longer yours, soothsayer." And she crosses her arms. She says, "As anyone still has breath in their chest, they still may be saved. That is what the most divine teaches us." And I think that you see the priest of Mor kind of splutter a bit, and he says, "So she is the most divine now, better than the gods and goddesses that we worship. Is that what it is?" And you can tell the priest of Mor can tell that he's like outnumbered here, but also he believes he has the backing of a real deity, and you know that these are people who don't matter to him, essentially. And that's kind of where you enter the scene, Aelin.
Yeah, so I think she just kind of walks in and sees the discord and simply says, brothers, sisters, we are on the same side. It does no one any good to argue. She kind of like moves forward and kind of shows her way towards the person who is of current debate.
Yeah, and I think that as you arrive, you see that the female knight that is sitting, or kind of like lying, she's in a state of like severe shock. And your initial probably like assessment of the situation is that the Priest of Mor is right. Like, this person cannot be saved beyond like significant healing magic. Like, they're probably already dead in the eyes of the game sense. They're just kind of like, their breath is coming very ragged. You can tell that maybe they're in VFib already. Like, there's a lot of things here that would be required to save this person, but it is possible, and in fact, it's not even that hard for you, perhaps. Especially knowing what you just did previously. This is inconsequential compared to that.
An intact body.
Child's play.
Right.
She does not say out loud. No, I think that, so Aelin obviously, in her past dealings with the priests and priestesses of Mor, and I know that she already is fully aware of the antagonism between our two groups and has tried endlessly to fix that. I think sees in this situation that yes, she could technically save this individual, but also sees this as an opportunity for an olive branch to show mercy on this individual, but also to show her deference to the Priest of Mor, to hope to help more people via their union. So I think that Aelin would walk over and, do her assessment and then take a deep breath and just look at her, I don't want to say disciple, the person who is...
Your cultist.
Yeah, okay. All right, fine.
Subordinate.
And simply say, no, sister, he is right. This one is too far gone. And she just kind of puts a hand over the eyes to just kind of like close them and ease the passing of the
Yeah, and there's a moment of incredulousness on her face, right? She kind of like looks, her mouth agape, she's like, but... And I think that she like sees the look on your face and probably like nods her head and says, apologies. I spoke out of turn. There's much more use and help we can do on others, perhaps, that are not beyond death's door. And the Priest of Mor kind of looks satisfied, but also kind of looks at you. Why don't you make me a check here? This sounds like a persuasion check. To kind of persuade this priest that you are extending this olive branch. Not to prove him right, but to say, listen, there's bigger things to argue about here.
Yeah, this is inconsequential momentarily.
Right, yeah. Like, we can fight this fight when we're not literally fighting a war.
Hell yeah.
Nice, a 21, yeah. So I think that the Priest of Mor, he kind of nods at you and, like, recognizes that, he's probably seen you do great miracles, too. Or other healers of renown do great miracles. And recognizes the fact that you refrained from it at his bidding, essentially. And he would have done that anyway, but I think that the successful persuasion here is he recognizes that you did it on purpose and not because he was right. I think that is kind of the implication here. And he nods, and as you like pull your hand away, he takes there's a piece of cloth, like almost like a thin bandana piece of cloth, that he folds very delicately, and it has the symbol of Mor as he folds it, and he rests it over the young female knight's eyes, and it kind of drapes, and you can tell like it's a little bit damp from he probably has it with some holy water, and as he picks up the gurney himself, like to carry it himself, and he says, "Thank you, priestess. I will see that this one has all of the livery that she was deserved of her life.
I'm quite certain you shall. She just kind of stares at him for a longer moment and then kind of goes to turn, but then turns back and just says, we must work together in these times, yes?
Yeah, and I think that for a moment he looks at you and kind of like regards the scene now, which is kind of like grown quiet, right? There's no yelling or shouting anymore. And he says, yes. There is room for cooperation. And I think
kind
he
of
gives
low nods.
Yeah, there's like a small smile in acquiescence, and he begins to depart with the body of this knight, having successfully countered the very interesting thing that could have happened. The group kind of turns to you, and they kind of looked not confused, but almost questioning of you, but never directly at you, right? Like you see, like the crowd is starting to disperse now to go about their various functions, but like a couple of them glance at you with like almost not disappointment, but almost surprise, because they probably know you could have saved him. At least some of them might assume. Some of them definitely assume, right? Because they think you can perform great acts and miracles that only gods and goddesses could. But I think there's like a little bit of a somberness about the crowd as they disperse to go about their business. Do you say anything to anyone, or do you just take that for what it is and continue your mission?
I think that she would turn to all of them, obviously, any who are still looking at her, and simply say, "'Tis always one, but for the greater good. There are much more that we can do here. Let's go." And she just kind of like shoos them along.
Yeah, and a couple of them nod. A couple of them say, "Blessings be upon you, most holy," and continue about their business. And the crowd kind of disperses. And I think that the last remaining is the woman who was like the center of the argument. You recognize her now. Her name is Madeline. You've definitely seen her and interacted with her before. And she says to you, "I apologize, your most holy. I should not have started the argument with the priest. He was only attempting to do his job, as was I."
No apologies, sister. These are trying times and does not necessarily bring out the best in us all. You did only what you thought was the best to do, but please note that in the future, it's best to work with than against.
Yes, I will remember this lesson well, most holy. And she kind of gives you a deep bow and proceeds off to go about her business as well. So, I think that with that, the deep sigh of relief, perhaps, from Aelin, we go to Morella, who is traveling, kind of wandering almost aimlessly to some calling or another. And Morella, as you're sort of wandering through, I think you find yourself in the Great Park. And as you find yourself wandering through here, you come over to the lake that has been kind of built here. And this lake serves as mostly decoration, but also during special events and celebrations, there are, different festivities that happen around it. Unfortunately, now it appears very polluted. I think that you see that there's almost a sulfurous smell coming from the water. You can see that there are like bits of debris that are kind of floating or bobbing in the surface, or that have disturbed the kind of the clearness of the lake as well, kind of making it a bit cloudy. And as you're kind of wandering and your heart and mind are kind of stretched out, why don't you go ahead and roll me a religion check?
Oh, religion check. Oh boy.
Yeah, we'll see
I'm good at these.
how in tune you are.
Not that in tune.
Oof, not that in tune, yeah. So I think that what happens here is you begin to kind of stretch out, and you realize that it's particularly hard for you to hear Urson here. Even though you've kind of escaped to a different area, there appears to be just like something that is standing in the way from you really connecting with, who you are as a person. I think a little bit, in your beliefs and what you've chosen to follow. How does that affect Morella when she comes to realize that?
I think the way that that she understands it, or she deals with it, is that I think she would sit at the edge of this lake and just take a deep breath in,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like more or less like try to figure out why she feels this way. Why is she feeling one may say shaken in faith? And I suppose it would probably be probably has to do with what you saw with Cahill earlier and things of that sort.
Yeah.
Seeing how a man that she believed to be one worthy to lead this empire, to lead a nation of people in the way that she believed to be the right way, was swayed. Even if it was only briefly, she saw that he was swayed. And she looks, at her own hands, and I think for the first moment she feels doubt in her own abilities. And that, like, whether or not she can be truly what she has been training her entire life and up to this moment to be.
Yeah. So I think that there's a question that comes to your mind that perhaps you didn't, perhaps you don't know why it's coming to your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it is reminiscent of your previous vision, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably a question, and it says it in the first person, not like somebody's asking you, but the question that pops in your mind is, what am I willing to sacrifice?
Mm-hmm.
And you wrestle with it for a moment, and what is the decision that Morella comes to? What is the epitome of the sacrifice for Morella that she is willing to accept in order to accomplish her goals?
Yeah. And I don't think she comes with the answer right away, but I think she stares off of the bit, like, out, and maybe she like looks back towards the temple, maybe like sees off in the distance like bodies scattering distant streets and things of that sort, or just smelling the scent of blood in the air. And I think she tries to reaffirm herself or get rid of this doubt, and saying that she can only give what she has, and that what she has is simply her life.
Okay. Can you roll a wisdom saving throw for me, please?
Sure. I'm great at these too. So,
Ooh.
holy crap.
Okay. So you feel a brief compulsion that the answers that you seek to the questions are in this lake. Perhaps only if you could get to the bottom of it, then maybe you would be able to find the answers that you seek to your questions. And I think that the logic part of your brain kicks in and says, no, I'm just imagining things. Like, there's nothing that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why that would make sense. And perhaps in this moment you don't think about it too much. But later on, perhaps during the downtime, maybe you realize that something was tempting you and you resisted it. Not right now, but perhaps when we get to the long rest of the day. It is when you realize it. And I think that it will, because you resisted it, it will give you some sort of affirmation of what the next step is for you.
Interesting. All right, then.
So I think that, having kind of not found your way to what your goal was, which was to find the garden again, you begin to make your way back towards the temple. And I think that we'll jump back over to our little spelunkers, Hannibal and Jericho, who, by the way, are the best bromance that has ever occurred in the show history. It's pretty great. So you all have scoured the study as much as you will be able to. You found all of the information that is possible to find, and you begin, I guess, to you collect all the things that are pertinent and begin to make your way back to the top. And when you arrive, I think that it's probably maybe like been an hour or so. There's no more sounds of fighting. There's no more sounds of any impending doom going to occur. And so you probably meet back up with Farron and Kree, who's still feeling very ill in the bushes. You notice Farron has like a big stick that he's just like tapping him on the back with every so often.
Okay. There's one more person I think we need to check out.
And who is that?
The hunter in the back.
Okay, yeah. You want to go interact with him, perhaps?
Yeah, because he is the... We've only interacted with 2 hunters, and he's the only one that didn't just straight up attack us.
And also spoke your language.
Yeah.
That did raise some questions.
Yeah, okay. So maybe you guys head out to the back, and I think you realize very quickly, Hannibal, that individual is no longer here.
I mean, this isn't the most unexpected thing.
Well, yeah, I wasn't
tried to
really
take the
expecting
temple.
him to be here, but I meant that... Is there any kind of sign of where he went, maybe?
That sounds like a survival check.
Shit.
To try and hunt something down or track something down. You know who's really good at those? Kree is typically really good at those if he wasn't poisoned for 3 hours.
That does
Yeah.
suck.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we wouldn't have found this magic shit if I didn't do it, so...
I've got 4 to survival. Am I assisting you or you me?
I'm assisting you.
Okay. Go ahead and make that roll with advantage. Oh my god.
I want to say you helped, but
I think that how we normally play it, right, is that the advantage roll is like what the other person does in this scenario. I think that you both easily identify the tracks that lead away from the door, like at the same moment. Both of you, like, you go outside, you like look around, and then you see like the very clear bone footprints that lead away from the temple and off towards kind of off towards Westgate.
Okay.
I mean, I'd like to add that the way I'm envisioning this is very much that scene where it's like 2 characters have both come to the same sudden realization at the same time, so they're both just sort of shouting at each other about the things that they're realizing as it's happening, but finishing each other's sentences. Only in this case, obviously, it's tracking, so there's a certain amount of so there's a footprint here, given the spacing that suggests moving at this kind of pace, and the other one is like,
And then
they're
there's
going
a
this
little
way,
thing
so
over
it's moving,
there
Yeah.
Right, until eventually we're both just like finishing the same sentence, shouting it at each other's faces.
Yeah.
That's I'm pretty sure that's how this goes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So
This is weird.
yeah, you guys are like
Yeah.
strangely in tandem, which is probably a little bit disconcerting for Jericho.
Deeply.
Yeah. I'm not sure I like this. Connecting with
I
someone.
gotta
We-
be honest, I'm not really into the research side of things as you are, so I hope this isn't throwing off your game or anything.
No, it's fine.
See, this is the curveball of the game. Everybody thought it was going to be Farron and Jericho, but really, it's Hannibal and Jericho. So
What?
the group of you, I think, eventually, as you're walking, I mean, you guys rolled 2 natural 20s there, Jericho. I think as you're tracking this hunter through the maze of houses, you know, you go a little ways, perhaps off, off in the distance, and you make it into the Westgate district. And I think that when you get there, you probably literally turn a corner, and you see that the same hunter-like figure wearing the heavier armor, has the greatsword on his back, is kind of just standing there, kind of staring at the Westgate. And you can see it looks like it's almost evaluating like the people or the things that are up there. It seems to be like just looking passively at it, just kind of standing there. And as you guys have full reign to like approach in whatever way you want.
Yeah,
Because...
I'm just going to walk up to it.
Okay.
And I'll start off with this. Sorry we couldn't give you our bones.
Oh, okay. This is what we're doing.
And like I'm not looking the least bit threatening. Like I'm walking up to him like I'm walking up to an old friend, you know what I mean?
Sure. I think the skeleton kind of turns, and like there's that creaking of bone as it turns. And it looks at you, and when it talks, it doesn't move its mouth or it doesn't speak, and you're not sure how. It's kind of like that weird ominous echoey voice, right? And it says to you, I felt as though you had succeeded. My chain was broken. What are you doing here?
At the moment, we're looking for some answers. And seeing as how you were linked to one of our answers that died, we were hoping you might have some.
You ask a favor. Ask one in return.
You want to get out, don't you?
I wish to
Go
see what is
where?
beyond these walls.
Well,
It has
that
been a
way
long
it's
time
small.
since I have been able to move.
I turned to Jericho. I think we can make that happen.
Sorry, but you were built or created or compelled specifically to hunt.
That's just their name, isn't it?
Yes, but typically they act sort of like revenants a lot of the time. But if they're built with no specific target in mind, they don't have one until they choose one, or until one is chosen for them, right? They are kind of like heat-seeking missiles. That is kind of their function in life. But what's a heat-seeking missile without a target? Just a normal missile.
Just a wanderer.
Right. Yeah, and it's clear that like this entity, whatever it is, doesn't have like any intention of harm against you. So
I'm fine with, like, just from looking at him, I don't think he's one to try to pick a fight with us. If we just let him on his way, I
I'm
don't
not
think
worried
we'll
that
have a
he's
problem.
going to pick a fight with us. But look, do you have a name?
I did one.
What? Okay, better question. What should I call you?
The one who created me called me Godric.
Godric. Interesting.
Does that name trigger anything?
It's a history check.
Yeah, I'm good at those.
You want some backup from the bard who knows things? No, guess not. It's no double crit, but
True. So Jericho, I actually also want you to roll this one.
yeah, cool.
Because you would have different information than Hannibal would be able to have access to. Okay.
You'd think so.
You'd think so, right. Hannibal, Godric is a pretty common Northern Empire name. It does stem from the local area, mostly. I think you would definitely know that, at least. And there are probably multiple, like, famous people that have that name. There's probably some powerful warriors that once fought in some long lost wars with that name that are written down in the the history books. There are probably some leaders, some generals. There's probably some bad guys too, right? Like there's probably some evil wizards that have that name, or perhaps like a paladin who turned bad. Like there are definitely some people who have that name, but unfortunately, the specific, just the single first name doesn't get you enough to really go on.
What about the fact that his main weapon seems to be a great sword?
Ooh, okay, yeah. So that definitely, that's a good question, and I'll give it to you on your same roll. Whoever this was clearly a warrior in life. So it limits it down
with
to
a penchant for bones.
Correct. Yes, he does like bones.
Then again, that just might be a skeleton thing. So.
Might be a skeleton thing. Who knows?
I was gonna, but I don't actually know. Now that you say it, it sounds racist.
So yeah, I think that in hindsight, what you get is this is probably some specific spirit that was summoned to inhabit this body, but it also seems like he doesn't even know who he was.
Okay.
So it is I think that the 21 gets you enough information to know this is probably some heroic spirit, or perhaps even infamous spirit. But without him even knowing who he is, it's going to be much harder to tell.
Okay.
Look, Hannibal, or rather, no. Look, Godric. Regardless of whether we could help you leave this place, there's no one out there who's going to look at you and not panic. It isn't safe for you to go anywhere. It isn't safe for you to see anything, anyone.
Yeah, and I think that he would look confused if he had facial features. So he just kind of stares impassively at you, right? It's actually kind of like weird to see. And I think then you hear the voice again, and he says, "But you are not."
No, but
We're
different.
A lot of unusual cases.
Interesting.
I think I might know someone that maybe might help you.
Will you be traveling away from this place soon?
Yes. Would you like to follow us?
Perhaps.
In that
for
case,
a favor.
Very well. In that case, I take off my robe and I put it over him, and then I take off my mask and I let him wear it.
Okay.
I feel very strange kinship with this guy.
So you're going to physically disguise him with your robe and your mask. Yeah, I mean, I think that will be effective to a cursory glance. It may require, if anybody talks with him, then it might.
Well, I'm going to be walking right by him. Yeah, and just basically I want to kind of just make it so that, or do we have a helmet of some kind? like, could we possibly lift just a regular like metal helmet that'll cover up the face?
I mean, there's like 100,000 dead bodies right now. Yeah, you could probably find a helmet to put on his head.
Okay, and with the heavy armor, does it hide kind of like a skeletal frame?
You have to have something to strap it to.
Yeah, right. Like
Hannibal,
it's just
we
gonna
can
jangle.
put together a decent disguise, I think. But are you suggesting that you want to just bring this unfortunate person with us? Just pass him off as your second pupil or something?
I think that it might just be best to. We might be able to get him. How heavily guarded is the West Gate?
So it's guarded by you guys, right? Like, it is mostly the wounded and kind of like it's not reinforced yet. It's mostly like the wounded soldiers from Kree's initial assault.
Okay, in my case, here's what I'm thinking: we walk over and take him out through the West Gate, then we come back, but along the way we ask our questions. We don't take him back to base camp. We just get him out.
Right, where he can wander around the countryside and either be horrified by villagers or snap and slaughter villagers.
Can I actually give him? I actually know where I can send him, where somebody there helped me. And they might be able to help him.
Do you have something specific in mind, or do you want to like make a roll to see if you know?
No, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, it might be something that I've just forgotten in the annals of history of this game, because we're at like technically session like I don't know 60 almost. This
It's got to be more than that.
arc.
So did you get my message?
Where did you send it?
I sent it to you.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah,
totally.
See what I'm getting at?
Yeah. You could absolutely do that. That would 100% be a place you could be.
Yeah. So
I think Jericho will look again conflicted for a very long moment and then say, "Oh, fine, you covered for me with Cahill, fine."
So yes. So along the way, I want to ask him a couple questions.
Okay. So why don't we go ahead and roll some stealth checks here now?
So Jericho's contribution here, rather than trying to stealthily walk with them,
You're
is
just gonna
that
make
he's
him
going
invisible.
to say what?
Are you just gonna make him invisible?
That also seems risky.
Okay.
I could. I was actually going to go for hopefully the double benefit by having him just sort of settle in and start performing like a sort of morale boost for the troops in the area.
Okay.
Also,
So you want to perform to create a distraction.
Also, real
Yes.
quick, how big is he?
He's big.
In that case,
his skeletal frame is taller than yours is for sure.
In that case, could I use reduce to make him look more innocuous? Like, because height stands out a lot.
It does, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you said you have disguise form?
I have reduce, enlarge reduce.
Oh yeah, no, you could reduce him. He would look more like a child.
Yeah.
Probably like a young teenager.
Wearing a mask and possibly some plate armor.
Or no, just like we can probably lift like no, wait, we shouldn't do this. It only lasts a minute. That'd not be a good idea.
No.
But what else do I have that could potentially
just
be
turn him invisible, fine.
seeming? I have seeming. No, wait, no, I don't.
No.
I'll just turn him invisible.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. So really you turn him invisible. And I
Still gonna
think
perform,
that
and now it's to make myself feel better about this.
Alright.
Before
Sure.
you do that, can we wait till we get there first?
yeah, you can approach
that
and
he-
then it's not going to take you an hour to get out of the gates.
Yeah, but like,
sure.
there's I also want to, in case he decides to cut and run when we turn him invisible.
You can just put a little leash on him.
Yeah, just leash put in there. I want to tell him
So
where
like
to go.
you could like hold on to the the arm of the robes, right, just to make sure he's still there.
Yeah,
as
like,
you're kind of,
he's not
walking.
wearing my robes now if he's invisible.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, and I have my mask back, but I'm gonna have like my arm like on his shoulder or something, and just look, or just kind of like be touching him in some way,
Just
like
grip
to
the
kind of
hand.
lead him.
Okay, sure.
And well, yeah, should we get to our questions? Ow.
Yeah. What questions are you going to ask?
Do you